Right, hi folks. Well, welcome to another episode of My Life with Robert Burns. I'm here with Jim Thompson, my friend and colleague from Newcomer Burns Club. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Douglas. Hi, everybody.
We've been chatting with our cronies from around the Burns world and letting you listen in on these conversations. Today we have a friend of ours from Newcomer. We have a former president of Newcomer Burns Club, Wally.
Hello, how's it going, everybody? And just let me start by saying it's a great honour to be here. Some of your interviews, in fact, all your interviews has been really interesting, and I congratulate both you in the work you've been doing to keep this going for it in this modern times of Zoom meetings and keeping in touch.
Well, thanks for that, Willie. And maybe you could just start off with telling us a wee bit about yourself.
Aye, certainly. No bother at all. I was born in 1967. I Ken, 53. You wouldn't believe it. That's your cue to say you're never that age, but never mind.
You're never that age.
It never works when I have to prompt you, Douglas, near it does. I was born in Irvine Central. And then I lived in Newcomnock at the time. I lived in the Crown Hotel, the youngest of 5. I've got 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Both my brothers are members of the club. My father was Alistair Dick for the Crown Hotel in Newcomnock. He was a great Burns man in his day, really keen. And that's where Newcomnock Burns Club held their Burns Supper at the time, and all the other events that they held throughout the year. So I've been kind of tied in, if you like, with Burns ever since I was born.
And your dad was a former president of the club?
Yes, my dad was a past president on Newcomnock Burns Club. He was at about 75 or something, 76, and about that kind of time that he was a president. And I think the kind of sad thing about it is I never ever got to see him perform at Onihan. I never came to Burns till a lot later than that, but we'll talk about that further down the line.
Mm-hmm. And was that the era that Willie Pearson was the club secretary?
Absolutely. Him and Wally Turner was going about too. And past President Gowdy and all, they were all kind of in about the hotel kind of whole time. There was a whole host of, what you would say, kind of Newcomer Burns Club legends was about the Crown, like Shanklin, Ken Robert Shanklin and Hasty and McClatchy, and the whole lot of them were all there, but Wally Pearson especially.
And did your mother help run the hotel as well?
Yes, it was a right kind of family affair, so it was everybody. For you could walk nearly, that was you. I'd say folk asked what your first job was. Well, all my old father, old Dick, it was as quick as you could walk and you would get a job. For your own age, you would be filling shelves or helping through in the cellar or shifting chairs. There was just a whole lot of things to be done, and we all just mucked in and get on with it. Now, I think that's what makes you the worker that you are today. It gives you the kind of work ethics that you have.
And did you go to school in Newcomnock?
Well, I went to school. I don't know if it done any good or no, but I certainly went to school. I went to the Castle Primary that was straight across the road for us. And that's where we started to get Burns, of course, at the school, at the primary school, until I was in primary 5, because I always remember you always had your competitions at the school. And in primary 5, I get down to the last 3. And when I come back to the class, the teacher told me that I would never win at any Burns competition because my father was involved in the burns side of things. And that just put me off competitions and burns, to be quite honest, altogether. And I never taken to burns again to a lot later in life.
Dear, dear. So which secondary school did you go to?
Oh, then I went to Cumnock Academy, or Scumnock Academy, depends which side of the border you come from, I suppose. Cumnock Academy, Cumnock Academy, went to fourth year, couldn't get away quick enough. I liked a class where I could look out the window and see what the farmers were doing, or what was going on in the countryside. That's always where my heart lay. There was no great spark of fire for me. There was no give me a spark of nature's fire. That's all the learning I desire. And though I drudged through dub and mire at blue or care, my muse, though handling attire, may touch the heart. Well, as I say, there was no spark of fire at the skill for me. And if it wasn't for the running the bus and the skill dinners, I don't know if I'd have went much at all.
And is that what you did from school? Did you go straight into farming?
If I was 14, I started working. If I was 14, as I said, that when we were in the Crown, we come out the Crown when I think I was about 12 and a half when we come out the Crown. And my dad retired at that time. And we moved out into the country to Bantglen. And at that time, I got a job when I was 14 in the local farm, Knockshinnock Farm, just down the road phase. Of course, Knockshinnock famous because of the Knockshinnock disaster. It was just ricked up above the farm. And I worked for an old farmer there called Bill Wilson. And he was a great old guy. So he was, we lifted tatties and made hay and mocked buyers. And it was just like 40 years ahead its time, but it was great. And he was off a good with me too. So he was a great chap.
And have there been any connection with farming in the family, or were you the first?
I was the first to work in the farms, but my mother came from a farm. She was brought up in a farm at the Glenya at Logan. She's a Shanklin to her own name and was for Crosler Farm, milk cows, and helped about the farm right up until she got married.
So there's obviously been a connection there and a history of farming. And is that something you're aware of in the family, or did you not know that connection at the time?
Always knew that there was a connection with farming through my mother's side, and I always enjoyed when we went up to our uncles and aunties, because both our brothers stayed in farms, and you get out and running about and chasing the hens and chasing the ducks and stuff. It was just good fun. A shot in a tractor. You could never beat a shot in a tractor when you were wee. Right. But that was never the interest for me, just because it was in the family. It's just what drew me, I think. I loved the outdoors, always loved the outdoors.
And what about your own family? Maybe better give them a bit of a mention.
Well, my own family now is I'm married to my wife Janice. Janice was for Mauchline. So like Burns, I went to Mauchline for my wife. I've been married for 31 years now, so I have. And I'm very proud to have two sons. Billy is the oldest and Stuart's the youngest. And what's even more proud of is both the boys are members in You Come That Burns Club and come along to the smoker as well as to the Burns supper every year. So what I never got to see with my father, I think it's quite good that they got to see me perform at suppers and at events. And I always hope that will maybe spark the interest for them to get going, just to get up onto their hind legs and to get speaking. because that's all it takes. It just takes that wee spark to get up and you're away. I was never going to be a speaker. Never thought it was for me at all. And here we are.
Very good. And you've often told me that when you were doing your work with the coups and such like, that was the time when you learned your poems.
Oh, absolutely. Aye, absolutely. When you were working with coups. But my first job wasn't there. Well, my first job was mucking buyers when I was 14. And then when I got to 16 and I left the school, I went and worked for Jim Liddell, that's got Liddell's coaches. And I worked for him for 1.5 years in the garage. And I fair enjoyed that. And it gave you a great grasp of a mechanical knowledge working in the heavy diesels. And then I got the chance to go back to Fairman. And I come back to Newcomnock to work, and I worked for Joke Duncan at Gatehead, which is now Duncan Plant Hire. And I worked away with Joke for, it was nearly 2 years I was with Joke. And then I get the wanderlust to go away and drill for coal. Now, we drilled for coal, it was a Bells Hill company. And we drilled for coal before the open cast come in. So we would be away up in the remotest hills and glens and away up forestries. You would never see a soul. So I really enjoyed that. And then we lost the company lost the contract for that. And I went back to farming, and I then went to Chang Farm at Cumnock and worked for Robert Stevenson, it was at that time. At that time, we were milking 400 cows 3 times a day, and it was just, I couldn't get my head around this to start with, because at Gatehead we had 60 cows, and we thought that was quite a lot to be getting on with. And I worked there until I went to Carnell, and then moved to Carnell, worked and lived at Carnell, I should say, too. And I was there for 23 years before I then moved to, I had a kind of falling out with the manager there. He didn't like my way of thinking, and I wasn't keen on his way of thinking. So things that just didn't work out. And I moved from there to Drumure at Dragon and worked for the Cuthbertsons, where I worked for 5 years. And then this year in February, I taken the plunge and went self-employed. I picked a great year to go self-employed and went away. And now I rear game. I rear pheasants, partridges and ducks along with my oldest boy, Billy. And that's
Very
where
good.
we're at now.
And you want to give the company a bit of a mention? Is it a name other than Dick?
Aye. The company's called Galloway Game Limited. We work out a wee place called Amysfield, or just up the road for Amysfield, on the kind of Dumfries Muffet Road. East Eyes down there, and that's where we've got, we rent a field and we rent 2 or 3 sheds down there, and we put our sheds and our shelters up down, and it's more central. That's the whole thing about it. For where he is, you're just out and you're on to the 74 in 10 minutes, and you can be either away up north, away down south, or across the borders. It really is quite central. So that's where we are. Galloway Game. Give me a phone if you're looking for any pheasants.
Right. Well, you've given us a wee bit of your Burns connection, but I'll pass over to Jim and get him to ask you a few questions about what you've done in your Burns career.
Oh, Wally, you're bringing back memories for me with Chang Farm. I was a moke boy there in the 60s. Great times it was. However, what brought you back to Burns?
I'll tell you exactly, and it's quite simple. What brought me back to Burns was my oldest boy, Billy, started to get burns at the school. And he was learning a poem and I was just kind of helping them at night, and we started and we learned his school poem together. And that was really just the spark of nature, the spark of fire that I needed to get. But I can never say, Ken, that I went to Burns. I think it was more Burns fund me than I fund Burns. Burns has done far more for me and introduced me to a lot of great folk. So it has. But that's the reason I get back into Burns, was through. And I remember the poem yet. It was the Mauchline Bells. Just a nice, simple wee poem. But Billy was learning it, and we would sit every night and just give it and over it. And that was the spark, if you like.
Well, you're kind of, I would say, world renowned now in terms of your entry in Burns, and what started you with particularly recitations, which is one of your strong points?
I see. It's a queer thing in the Burns world. So as you are famous or you're known, I don't think I'm famous. I think I've just been lucky and met the right folk at the right time, to be quite honest. Certainly no famous, and I'm not saying that I don't think I'm that great, because I don't think I'm that great. I think I'm just newcomer, and that's all there is about it. But what taken us into our poems was started off in the Masonic. So when you were in the Masonic, you had your meetings, and then after the meetings, you would down the stair, you would have a cup of tea, sometimes you'd have pie, and then you would have pint, and we would get into harmony after that. And the harmony is when folk in the room would get up and do a turn. And you never want it to be left out. So you always wanted to have something up your sleeve that you could pull out. And I think it's a great thrill yet when you're sitting in a room and you don't really ken the man to your left or the man to your right, and they get up and do a turn, and yet you had no idea. I think that's a great thrill, so it is.
It's certainly a background for Burns in terms of the Masonic movement. But you're probably better known nowadays for speeches, and you've obviously developed a kind of an enjoyment for that as well.
Aye, absolutely. As I said earlier, where you're in different places, I think there's bits in Dumfries where I'm more known for doing speeches, and then I've other bits in Ayrshire where I'm better known for doing recitations, and it's starting to get known now for chairing suppers. But I love the speeches, and I've had some great honours, so I have, there's no doubt. But there is also no doubt in my mind that what has really got me into it was meeting Bobby Jess and Jim McVitie, and especially the latter, Jim McVitie. I mean, being me and wee Bobby, we were both maesters at the same time in different lodges. But Jim McVitie, he was the man that showed me that there was a great humour in Burns. Burns didn't have to be this serious thing. Let's all just have a bit of no carry on. Let's just continue with Burns, but let's make it light and humorous and bring everybody in, encompass everybody and hold their attention. And I think that's what the humour does with Burns.
Aye, well, Jim McVitie's a good example, and I don't know how many times I've tried to coax him back out of retirement, but he's no for it. But his Tam O'Shanter's fantastic. A great reader, as we would say in Ayrshire. But I mean, you're talking about recitations. You need to give us a verse or two of something you really enjoy.
Oh, well, we've got a lot of great Laprake. Douglas there was, Jim was involved with the Laprake Day at the judging. So I really do. I love the Laprake. I gave you a wee verse there earlier, give me a spark of nature's fire. I think that's a great thing, and it kind of sums me up too. So it is. Parnassus Hill. Parnassus Hill is lovely. And if you're toasting the lassies, how can you know ye's Parnassus Hill when Burns wrote, by night, by day, or field at hame, the thought of thee, my breast and flame, and I amuse and say your name, for I'd only live to love thee. Absolutely fantastic words for toasting the lassies or for talking about the lassies. Or if you're in a memory, Ken, for me, you've got the address to Beelzebub. Like, where will ye get Howes and Clintons to bring them to the right repentance and cow the rebel generation and save the owner o' this nation? For they be damned, what recht had they to meet their sleep or licht a day for lest the riches, poor, or freedom, but what your lordship likes to give them? Fantastic verse, I think, for Beelzebub. Really strong, really hits it home.
Just while I've got you, I think the members would support me in terms of you coming up Burns Club, and so far as your presidential year was a great year. How did you find it?
Oh, I thought it was an absolute ball. I just had a great time. Right for I went on to come off. The number of club members, the number of past presidents I had coming up and saying, whatever you're doing this year, I'll support you 100%. And they done that for me. When you see the club events that we had that year, we had great numbers at them, and I really most thankful to the club, to the Hale Club for what they done for me. It was a ball. And because I have been running Burns suppers for as long too, I could draw in friends to come and speak that I have been and speak at theirs. And I think that's what made it kind of extra special too, that you could have friends, right good friends coming and speaking or singing at your events. And that was really special for me.
Going back in years, Wally, what was the first supper you went to? Was it a Newcomer supper?
No, it wasn't. The first supper I went to was at Sanka Lodge, Sanka 194's its number. And it was, I had a big pal at the time. I've still pal with him yet. Haven't lost him. Tried, but haven't lost him yet. His name's Mark Payton. And he wanted to go to a supper. And I was a member of Sanka. So I said, right, we'll go to this supper. I'll try and get his tickets. And a big pal of mine for Cumnock was Jimmy Poole, who's sadly now passed away. Now, Jimmy went absolutely everywhere with me, to any supper that I would go to any Masonic meeting I would go to. In fact, he would sit in a shovel if somebody else would put it for him. He would have came along with. So Jimmy was great at that. And Jimmy was a right character where folk would always come up and he had great party pieces. Jimmy, always songs that he sung. Like, there was a man in Chinatown, his name was Chickaree Ching Chai, his name was many, but his feet were small. When he went to the cross and he lost them all. And then that goes on. And he loved his Burns suppers, Jimmy, and he sung that in Cumnock one night. And the headlines in the Cumnock Chronicle the next week was, Cumnock man sings Burns in Chinese. So that was my first supper. Went along to it and really thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a great night, and with great folk. In Sanka Lodge at the supper, there's about 80 folk go to it, but it's in a wee room, and you're kind of sitting and tap at each other. It's really quite intimate. It's just great sitting there with your friends and your pals, and the atmosphere that is gathered in that room is fantastic. And they boys, can all take a right good dram, so they can. And never once did it ever step out of line when there's a speaker or anything on there. Fantastic group of guys.
And you've taken on the mantle of chairing that supper for a few years now.
Yes, I chaired that supper. I was getting the speakers for that supper for about 12 years, I think. I get speakers for that supper. And I chaired it for 5 years. And now I've gave it up, and Bobby Jess. I gave it up because I just felt it was needing a change again. You've got to change your chairman roundabout, keep things fresh, keep speakers different as well. And now Bobby Jess chairs that supper and is making a great job of it. Also chair a bun supper at Auchinleck Masonic, but it's mixed. And that's another one. We always keep it light and airy. I've had Jim along to speak at it, and he'll tell you itself, the whole night is just a hoot, so it is.
Very good. And of all these suppers you've been to, is there any that have been particularly memorable that stand out in your mind?
Oh, every supper's memorable, so it is. Folk ask you how many suppers have you been at this year, and I never give them an answer at all. For the simple fact, I don't count them up until I'm finished with suppers. And at that time, I might count them up, but there again, I might know. Every supper I go to is like the first supper, so that I stand up there, I'm fresh, and I'm ready just to go on with it. But I've been awful lucky in my career. And it's the great folk that you meet. Great folk. Joe Kennedy, he was an absolute cracker. And he was a great influence as well to me. And now Angus Middleton. Angus Middleton's another one. Absolutely fantastic. So he is. He's a right good entertainer. And I'm proud to say he's my friend. We first met at Newcomnack Burns Club. That was a way back. I think it was about 2005. It was my first smoker. It was the only smoker I think I spoke at. But I spoke at it was me and Angus Middleton and Hugh McHarg and Les Byers for Dumfries. Rob Wilson was the president at the time. And ever since that night, me and Angus has kept up with each other. And that when we get to a supper, it's just like ping pong along the top table with stories and insults we can fling at each other. He's I get on at me because he thinks my hair's wild. Again, it's kind of tame the new, but it's usually got a kind of wildness to it. Whereas he dyes his hair. I don't care what he says, he dyes his hair.
Very good.
But no, back to bun suppers, memorable ones. One of the most memorable must be, and I've got to say it, I hope nobody takes a huff, but when I went on as president, that was just absolutely phenomenal. And then when I come off as president, it was just great. And it wasn't like a relief, oh, I'm finished. No, let me tell you, when I come off as president, we went out as a bang. And Ian Sloan, the new president, he made a great job of chairing that bun supper. The other bun suppers that's really memorable, I had the great honour of being at Burns Cottage bun supper last year. And there's only about 30 folk, but it's actually in Burns's cottage, held on the 25th of January, on the very day that Burns is born. You're there holding a Burns supper in his memory. The whole night was just absolutely phenomenal. So it was phenomenal. But I had a great weekend that weekend. I come off, I was at Largs, which is Angus Middleton's Burns Club on the Thursday. I was at Newcomnack Burns Club on the Friday, I was at the Burns Cottage on the Saturday. I was at Celtic Connections on the Sunday. And on the Monday, I was at the House in Dumfries. And that's a great Burns club as well, and a really good Burns supper. And then on the Tuesday, I was at Terboughton Kirk Burns supper. So that weekend, I was everywhere where Burns was associated with. And it was just an absolute dream. So it was a dream.
Fantastic. Well, we got a wee bit of poetry out you earlier on, and we're kind of coming to the end of our time. Is there anything else you'd like to give us a few verses of?
No, I think, well, you want me? Like,
Aye, that'd be good.
We're asking.
Right, give me a wee minute to get the first verse where we're
Okay.
going. One of my favourite poems is Hugh Parker. When Burns first went to Ellisland, although he didn't stay at Ellisland, he stayed at the Isle Fern, and that was an absolute hovel of a place. It was cold, it was covered in smoke. Remember what the old council houses used to be like with the chimney blowing down? Well, that's what the Isle was like. Burns was there, he didn't ken a soul there. The only person he knew was his horse, Jenny Geddes. His brand new wife was 50 mile up the road in Mauchline. And he wrote, "Here, for my wanted rhymes and raptures, I sit and count my sins be chapters for life and strength like other Christians. I'm dwindled down to mere existence. We nae ken verse, but gala with bodies. We nae ken face, but Jenny Geddes, Jenny. My Pegasean pride, dowie she saunters down this side, and aye the westland luck she throws, while tears habit her all brown nose. Was it for this we cannae care, that bore a bard through mony a shire, house or hillocks never stumbled, or late or early never grumbled." Fantastic words for a fantastic poet, Robert Burns.
Well done, Wally.
Well done, Wally. Yeah, it's a great poem. That it's one that's not often heard. I've heard you do it before, but it's tremendous words.
As it's really quite, it's heart-wrenching at times. So it is. But that was Burns, can he push your heartstrings that many times? Like, for all the airs the wind can blow. What a song that is. And reputedly, our so local legend tells us, written in the way through New Cumnor, and all the hills, all the top of Parnassus hills, and first heard sung in Sanker and his way to Ellisland. What a legacy that is. For New Cumnor, for Sanker, for Robert Burns, but more especially for Gene Armour, the love of his life.
Very good. Well, as I said, we're kind of running out of time. Before we go, is there anything else that you want to tell us about? Anything that just between the three of us?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered most things. So as I've been president of the New Cumnor Burns Club. Angus Middleton says it's one of the best clubs ever, and I would agree with him in that. So as everywhere you go, you're always well taken by the horn and looked after. There is great clubs out there. See, when you're out and about, I love inter-club nights. So I would encourage anybody that had half an interest to go to inter-club nights. The Irvine lassies, absolutely crackers of folk, so they are. And they're just that nice and warm. The reception you get, the welcome you get is second to none. And there's a lot of right good clubs out there. But let me invite each and every one of you to the Bachelors Club. That is where we, once a month, And we're doing it virtually now through Zoom, and we have poetry nights, and they're absolutely fantastic. So you'll hear folk doing their own works, doing Burns' works, doing other poets' works, and it's just an absolute buzz. And that's what I would like to see, to try and keep going. I had a great honour. I kind of fell in with Hugh Farrell and Tracy Harvey, and through the 3 years we keep this going every month. But Douglas has been keeping it going over Zoom, doing a great job again, Douglas. But the nights that we actually had in the Bachelors Club, we've had some fantastic acts there. One that sticks out with me is Wooden Wire for Dumfries. Kenny and Doug came. And let me tell you, you've got to hear them playing, to hear Burns. It's just absolutely fantastic. Another great ones we had was Bob Bailey for Mauchline, and the wonderful, and I say wonderful, Wally Stewart for Dundonald. What an absolute cracker of a man, and a lovely voice he has in him. He does a trilogy of Burns songs, and when you hear those three sung, and I've heard this man, I've heard Wally Stewart sing that at midnight in a drunken room, and there's no one murmur. He's got everybody in the palm of his hand. It's absolutely fantastic. And I think that's what the Burns movement's all about. So it is. It's the live performances on the night that just grips you and keeps things going. But other than that, I would like to thank the two of you for allowing me to come along here. Douglas, you have been a great fella for Newcomnock Burns Club, and through you I have met your son Neil, which I think's a cracker of a fella, so he is, and led me astray many a time in a trip.
Thank you very much, Wally.
And Jim, for your knowledge in Burns and your friendship, I thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that just leaves us for us to thank you, Wally, for giving up your time and telling us about your life with Robert Burns. Thank you very much.
Thank you.